Hey folks, Sheriff Lamb here. Welcome back to another podcast, another episode of On the Border with Sheriff Lamb. And thank you, FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, for being so involved in the border and immigration and what we do out here. We got another great guest today, and this is a man that lives out here in Southern California. They let me into California, and we were able to come down here and spend a little time yesterday on the border with him and his crew. We're going to get into a little bit of that. But Cory is an Army veteran. Cory Gautereaux is an Army veteran. We call him Cory the Goat. Cory the Goat. The goat and the lamb here. Cory is an Army veteran. He is a business owner, gun store actually. And he's an American that's passionate about the border and been working on this stuff for a while. And the stuff that he comes across and finds and the stories he can tell, we probably don't have enough time for all of it today, but it's a pleasure to have you today. And actually, thank you for having us because we're sitting here in your property.
Of course.
But thank you so much for having us today and being on the podcast.
Thank you. There is a ton to talk about. I see a future in the Lamb and the Goat show.
Right? I know. It just makes sense. It feels right. I was kind of joking. I said, I told my wife I was going out to see Cory the Goat. And she said, well, he calls himself Cory the Goat. But now she knows why.
Well, just because my friends aren't smart enough to be able to pronounce my last name, so we had to change it for them.
Well, thank you for changing it for us. Thank you for changing it for us. So let's jump right in. I mean, look, you've been here. You're close to the border here. You live close to the border, but you're also very active, trying to help with this border situation. Just kind of give us an idea. First of all, what made you want to get involved in it?
Well, I didn't want to. I never really wanted to. I've always been passionate about public safety. And, I was in the service. I was a reserve firefighter before that out here in the Boulevard area. And we started seeing just some off-the-wall stuff happen out here. As I told you yesterday, my wife saw a message on Facebook that said there's a large group of Chinese people walking down the freeway. We're in the middle of nowhere. We're out in the country, and a lot of people don't understand that California does have a country. I mean, it was very cold.
I saw it last night. Yeah. Very cold.
In one of the spots we were in, the barbed wire fence was 3 feet from the road, and that was the border. That was it. So when I saw that, I said, oh, that doesn't make sense. So I hopped in the truck, drove down the road, and there was a large group of Chinese people walking down the freeway. The Border Patrol and I were looking at each other like, what's going on here? We had no clue. So that kind of started everything for me. And from there, it's just turned into madness.
Yeah. And do you see, when did that change? Was that in 2021? Was it that under this administration that's now leaving office? Is that when you saw the big change? Is that when you got involved?
Yes. So I've been, as you know, I testified in Congress, and now I went from some normal dude who's just trying to live his life and run a business and have a family to some people call me a border expert. I'm very careful with that term. I don't want to be sued for anything. I know a lot about the area, a lot about the border. I grew up here, born and raised here, spent a lot of time out here. And we never saw what has happened in the last few years, not my entire life. We had the normal illegal immigration, mostly Mexican, Central American people. And now, what people aren't understanding is we haven't seen, it's funny, we saw some Mexicans last night. In the couple of years we've been doing this, I think we've seen 2 groups of Mexicans. That's it, out of the hundreds of groups we've seen.
Yeah, that's surprising. And we talk about those groups you've seen, and I know you're going to run us through, and people can't really see. You've got boxes and boxes of IDs and passports. I mean, here's some of the passport stuff you've got. I think we were talking about how many different countries you found passports from.
I think it's close to 50.
I think we counted 67 yesterday on Nick's phone. Okay. 67 different countries that you yourself have found passports for.
Well, my team and I.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. That's a good leader right there. That's a good leader.
We have a core group of guys that come out with us, and a lot of them don't want to be named. They prefer my face to be everywhere, and I can't go back on that now. So,
not after you testified in Congress, and not after this podcast, hopefully.
Well, so they've been helping with a ton of stuff. They'll go out when I can't go out, and they know where to look, where to find stuff, how to stay safe. It's a great team, and they continue to find this stuff just day in and day out, laying out there.
The border, you see it in a whole different light. And I think a lot of people across the country, it gets politicized. People talk about, we have people voting in Washington, D.C. on border issues that have never been to the border. Tell me, first of all, what are the dangers of what you've seen with this open border and with the people coming in? What are some of the dangers you guys have picked up on?
There's a wide variety of everything from what we saw last night, which we'll talk about, but that, all the way from that, to environmental dangers to the people coming across, to terrorists coming across. I mean, this phone right here we've looked into that, and these phones we find that are, just make sure everybody knows they're abandoned property. We didn't take them from anybody.
They just leave them out there.
Leave them out there. Most of the time they're burnt or they try to destroy them. Sometimes they'll leave the SIM cards in, but we have a handful that are not destroyed at all and no passwords. Just go right in. This guy had all of his pictures on there. He lived in between the area of Pakistan and Afghanistan, up in the mountains up there. We spent a lot of time looking for a very high value target in that area for many years.
It has been a breeding ground and a harboring place for terrorists that do not love America.
And just the other day, Border Patrol or Homeland Security released that they found a guy coming from the Wagner Group in Russia, to a Russian mercenary, coming through the border he had a bunch of cash, a couple different cell phones. These aren't people just coming here looking for a better life. They don't like us. They don't like our country. And they're here for, we could all guess what reasons they're here for. But there's also a huge number of Chinese people that have come through that we've seen. Males. Now, in some of these Asian countries, I spent 14 months in Korea. Korea is not China, I understand that. I'm not trying to say it is, but you and I are giants over there. We don't fit in at all. If you see a Chinese guy on a mountain here at the border in the middle of nowhere that's almost our size, height, walking through by himself, military age, knows exactly where to go, nothing on his cell phone, no pictures, no ID, no passport. Is he coming for a better life? We don't know, because he ended up being a Gautereaux. We saw him walking down the freeway later that day.
Well, and I know that number is, I think it was 37,000 in 2023. I think 2024 ended up being more than 60,000 Chinese nationals coming in. A lot of people don't realize that you can't just leave China. These are communist countries. You've got to have some permission to be able to leave there. And that has always been a concern to me. And like you were saying, majority of them are military age men. And majority of them, not only are they military age, they look like they are in the military.
Yes, the haircut, the build, the height of the build.
The mannerisms, the way they carry themselves.
Yes. Yeah. So this phone, a separate phone, this is a Chinese man's phone. This is how we got into, one of the ways how we got into all the Telegram chats that we're in. And these Telegram chats explain how to get into the country. Some of them have 10,000 members. There's one in there that has about 60,000 members, 30,000 pictures, thousands of files. One of the files is how to, once you get in the country, how to get a DoorDash account or Uber Eats account, but not how to sign up for the program to start working. It's how to exploit it by leasing it from someone who can legally have the account. And then they take the vehicle without a driver's license or insurance, and they use that person's vehicle to do all the door dashing, and then they pay the VIG to the owner of the account. So that's something you guys could see if you use DoorDash or Uber Eats or some of these services. If the person doesn't match the person that says is delivering your food, that's a red flag. A sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, some of the pictures on the phones, tell us about some of the pictures, because you guys were showing me some of these. These are sensitive areas.
Yeah. On the Chinese phone, it shows his complete travel from China, Turkey, and then goes through the Darien Gap. He has pictures of everything, but it's not just pictures of hey, we're going through the jungle. This is a pretty part of the jungle, or this is a treacherous part of the jungle. They are checkpoints. So who is he sending these back to?
Right.
Now, we couldn't get into the WeChat, or there's some other Chinese chat apps that we couldn't get into. And we have no idea why he's sending checkpoints pictures of himself back to China. But we know there are that many Chinese. Yeah. He's not sending it to his CCP friends to tell them he's okay.
And it's not just pictures. I saw a picture of SpaceX.
Yep.
I saw a picture on one of the phones of one of the naval yards where there was the aircraft carriers, and then the caption underneath was 4 aircraft carriers or 4 ships here.
So the critical infrastructure they're taking pictures of, and they're putting in these chats. And I'm trying to explain that they're not just taking pictures of cool things in our country. That, when we go on vacation, I'm not taking pictures of a police station. And let's say I go to Arizona, I'm not going to take a picture of the police station. I don't care what the police station looks like, right? I'm not sending that back to my family. They're taking not just pictures of SpaceX, but the entry and exit points to the airfields or the bases. That's not normal. It's not normal behavior.
No. You, having seen this, do you think there is an imminent danger to America?
100%. It's a ticking time bomb right now. There's so many cool things that we've been invited to in stadiums and concerts and stuff that we just won't know. I know too much at this point.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Well, I've said, look, you should be careful in any soft target area where you can't be armed, where there's a lot of people. I think those are certainly areas that are vulnerable at best. So we talk about the bad, and look, folks, I can't even begin to tell you, like, the credit cards, the passports, the documentation, the notes they leave behind, just all sorts of different languages, all sorts of different, IDs, passports, cell phones, all of that stuff. It's hard to comprehend. And the trash, the trash that they leave. We see it in the deserts in Arizona. A little bit different in my county. I was telling you last night, we see the camouflage clothes, the backpacks, the carpet shoes. These are the gotaways. What we saw with you is a lot of trash that the NGOs, these humanitarian groups, are leaving water bottles, and then those people will drink it and leave it all on the side of the road. They're leaving clothes and shoes. And I mean, it was all up and down that mountain. It was, even for me who has seen it much and a lot, I was still shocked with just how much trash there was on that mountain last night.
It's disgusting. And we were joking around yesterday in the truck. Where are the environmentalists? And then let's go back to the humanitarians. The ones that they call themselves humanitarians, but they're facilitating this invasion. They're putting food and water out there at these locations. And you see the MRE trash everywhere, the water bottle trash everywhere. But explain what we saw last night, those kids, the moms of the kids.
Well, that was the other piece I want to talk about. But just one more question about the NGOs, these men. I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of people because there is the humanitarian side of it. But do you think that they're doing more harm than good overall, these NGOs or humanitarian groups?
Yes, they are inviting people to our country, not through safe ports of entry, through treacherous mountain ranges. And I know people.
Last night was a perfect example.
Yeah.
So last night we ran into a group early, around when the sun was probably about an hour before the sun went down. We had 2 males. One of them was 16, one 18, 2 females. And then they both had little 4-year-old girls. And it was not a warm night last night. It was windy and cool, and the temperature was dropping fast. And they did not know, when I was asking them in Spanish, what they were getting into.
No clue.
Nobody told them. They just said, get to that road and follow that road. But it was probably a solid mile up the road, and then another couple miles of switchbacks to get down to the road, just to get to a highway that there was no guarantee that you were going to get picked up.
Especially that late at night. Can you explain the terrain a little bit? Because I know people think California is, just beaches and palm trees.
This was no beach. It was no beach. But it was, this was very rocky terrain, a lot of low brush. I mean, look, if you were traversing this at night, you're going to sprain an ankle, if not worse, if you're trying to walk off these paths, which they do. Even going up that road was fairly steep. This was not a flat land area. This was a very rugged and rough area, a little bit different than what we're used to in Arizona. Ours are more hardcore mountains and stone, but this is it was a rough terrain, and I don't know how those people are all traversing this.
So we found out what happened. We, as you know, last night one of the guys on our team called it in to the Border Patrol station, let them know exactly where we were, gave them coordinates basically, and we were hoping that they were going to come pick them up. Now, that's a whole nother subject that we could spend hours on. Is it the Border Patrol's job to come pick up people and save them? Is it the sheriff's job? Is it CAL FIRE's job? Well, because of the cameras we have out there, Border Patrol never showed up last night. They spent the entire night out there. We saw CAL FIRE go up this morning and get them this morning. So they spent the entire night freezing, and we're sitting in the truck. The mom was crying, holding the baby, and this is something that we see every week. We see this.
And look, I see it all the time too. It's still tough, you know. I told my wife about it this morning. That's the humanity side of it, and that's the part that the average American doesn't see. They think these people are just walking across and Border Patrol's waiting there open arms, and that's not the case. I mean, many of these folks are left for dead in these deserts. We go get them, or they're near death because they were left freezing overnight. Tell us, you run into this obviously a lot. What are some of the limitations that you as a citizen have to not be able to provide the aid that you would like to provide to them?
So it puts us in a huge quandary here, because some people think that we're vigilante, and I know you saw last night we're not doing anything that would give us that definition at all.
You're providing care.
We're observing and reporting and providing care. I'm actually a respiratory therapist, so and my business partner at the gun store is a nurse. So when we go out there, if there's people that need care, we took an oath. As you know, just not saying that you did, but we took an oath to care for people. We give them water and we make sure that they're okay. But that's about all we can do. You know, if we had stuff last night like blankets or hand warmers, I would have given it to them. But I'm all out. I've already given those all out to other people.
And if they get in your car and you now Border Patrol finds you with them in your car, what then?
We're trafficking.
Or if you drop them off somewhere and something happens to them, who are they going to hold accountable?
They come after me. So we can only help enough to just give them some things. And you know, we have people on one side of the aisle here that are mad that we're doing that, and then people on the other side of the aisle are mad that we're not putting them in the truck and warming them up and taking them down the road. But the bottom line is, we did not force them to come here.
Nor did you create the situation.
No, we're just trying to stop the situation, stop the bad people from coming in, stop the good people from coming in, because they're sold a bill of goods that they just, like you said, they just cross the border and they're going to be home free. It was about a 10-kilometer walk for them last night in that wind.
And they literally sat there waiting for Border Patrol to come because that's what they were told.
Yep.
And I could spoke very clearly. I speak fluent Spanish, and I could, you know, they thought that that's what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. That Border Patrol was going to come, pick them up, and everything was going to be okay. And I promise you, they probably spent one of the most miserable nights of their life last night out there in those mountains.
When I put a jacket on, it's cold. It was cold.
It was cold. That wind was cutting last night. You know, we talk about the problem, you know, the dangers of it, the humanitarian side of it. We talk about your passion for doing, you know, what you're doing. You're not a law enforcement guy. You're a citizen. You're a civilian. And I want to know, from a civilian standpoint, having knowledge of what's going on, because a lot of the people that I talk to on the podcast might be fellow sheriffs, fellow law enforcement, senators, congressmen, people that maybe you have more ability to do something about it. As a citizen, what do you think what would you like to see over the next 4 years? And what do you think would be some of the things that we could do to fix the issues with border security and immigration.
I think the biggest thing, we need to stop the bleed at the border immediately. And as you saw, and I know it's in other states as well, the border fence doesn't just start at the ocean and go all the way through the border. It stops in a lot of spots. And that border
We
fence,
went to one of those last night.
yeah, and that was a big, huge spot.
And there was a group ready to cross.
Yep.
We were the ones, because we were there, they didn't cross.
Yeah, they hunkered
So,
down.
I mean, they hunkered down, they were waiting, but they would have crossed, and we didn't know who they were. They could have been from China,
Yeah.
Africa, Afghanistan,
It was the same
Iran.
It was the same area that our cameras have picked up twice, armed members from the South coming into the United States armed
How recent?
last week.
Last week.
Well, it could have been more recent than that because they ended up stealing
I
four
mean,
of
they
our
could have been
cameras.
armed last night.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they stole the cameras.
So besides stopping the bleed at the border, which is possible. Now you're not.
Can I add one more thing to that? I don't mean to interrupt you,
Oh, yeah.
because this may help you with this point. We drove how many miles? You can tell them how far we drove. We went all the way to where the wall starts and stops. And then we went all the way back, and we didn't see a single border patrol agent in that area. And it's not a knock on them. They're busy having to process people. That's not the job they signed up for.
No, and we discussed last night. They're losing these abilities that the border patrol have been known for forever. If you wanted somebody who could track, you go talk to the border patrol. They could find anybody. Now you have a ton of new guys that were hired in the last 4 years, and they don't have. I mean, I'll stop and talk to them. Hey, how many people do you think went this way? I have no idea. You talk to an old guy. 6 males, 3 females, and it looks like 2 kids. You just looked at the dirt and told me that? They're losing that ability. So, but back to your point, what could they do to fix it? Besides stopping the bleed, I think there's so many people that are willing to help some are afraid. But when we go into other countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, the first thing we do when we get there, set up security, and then go talk to the locals. Hey, what's going on out here? I'm a local. Nobody has come and talked to me yet. And I'm all over the place now. But I have neighbors down here that would be more than happy to help. I don't know if that's, you give them a radio with a secure line, you give them a cell phone number, something. Now that used to happen years ago. They used to give people radios out here. But now radios are sensitive items and
Only cost $8,000 a piece.
yeah, I mean, our radios worked fine last night and they were
Yeah.
$30 on Amazon. So there are things that they can do to work with locals because the locals know that the guy down the road might be involved in something. But today, because of the last 4 years, they're afraid to speak up. So we need to, you said it best yesterday, we need to change the narrative back to, hey, we're in charge. We're in charge. We're going to prosecute. We're going to hold people accountable.
And the narrative is the most humanitarian thing that you can do is to secure the border.
Yes.
Not only is it the most important thing you can do for the American people, but the most humanitarian thing you can do is to secure the border.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have run into 2 moms with 4-year-old kids that were froze to death last night. Not literally froze to death, but probably pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty close. And, that's on us because the narrative has been bad. The narrative has been, hey, come here and we won't send you back. That's kind of what this government's done. And so taking the narrative back, and I think that's an important piece of it.
And it frustrates me.
I'm sorry, I keep jumping in on the answers.
You're good. It frustrates me beyond belief to keep watching this. I mean, you heard what I said last night, and I'm not going to say it on camera, but we get so frustrated, and the team gets so frustrated. Right? We're unpaid. We're doing this because we love our country. My grandfathers are rolling in their graves right now. They fought for this country, and just to watch what's happening is just insanity. But we go out there and we see this, and we can't help the people that need to be helped. We can't stop the people that shouldn't. Well, none of them should be coming in, but we can't stop the bad guys. And how do we know they're bad guys? When 8 groups of males walk through together, and they look like they eat better than I do. Where are all the? Did they just abandon all the women and children at home? We actually ran into a group one time that all the men went ahead and left the women and children back, and I almost lost my mind.
And a lot of people will say, well, it's racist to stop people. That's the go-to. If you lose an argument, immediately start to call people names. But the reality is, you hit on it earlier. In all your time, you've only found maybe 2 groups that were actually from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of these people are coming from all over the world. So it has nothing to do with skin color, it has nothing to do with any of that. This has to do with, we have a responsibility to protect our country. And we're not doing it. And we have a responsibility to fix immigration. And they're not doing it. And I think it's created a really bad storm in this country. And, we as citizens are paying it. And then citizens like yourself are out trying to do something about it.
When you say our country, that means all the people we don't agree with as well. That's their country too.
Right.
This is our country as a whole. I wish that people could see what we saw last night and some of the other horrible things we've seen out there, because they wouldn't allow this to happen if they saw it firsthand. But as you know, the media is not showing this stuff. They're not out there. Border Patrol wasn't out there. It's a free for all. The border is wide open.
So you talk about securing the border again. I think you mean, getting Border Patrol, doing the things they know how to do, they're good at. Technology, is it working at max capacity?
We have our budget is basically nothing, and you saw the capabilities that we had with just what we scraped together last night. We saw people in pitch black dark with a thermal drone that was donated from some other work that we did with another organization. Mm-hmm. That thermal drone is a game changer. Now, I know in other states they have the capability to have actual drones up and looking at this stuff. ISR, you guys have one of those blimps over there, don't you?
They put up the blimps every now and then. Yeah.
What's up with California?
You see it down in Cochise County all the time.
Yeah.
On the technology, we talked a little bit about this last night. How confident are you that all of the cameras that Border Patrol has are working, and all of these sensors that we as taxpayers paid to put in the ground in different places are working?
A report came out recently that said, I'm paraphrasing the number, trying to remember the number, but it's around 30% of the camera system sensors are not working. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sign that says "free gun" if you call this number. I'm going to hold it up to all the cameras, and they'll know if they're working or not.
I think you will. That's right. The checkpoint. I drove through a checkpoint. Unmanned. Well, it was open. So we're missing on the checkpoints too. I think getting those checkpoints down in Arizona, those checkpoints are oftentimes 20 to 50 miles off the border. So they're choke points when these guys get on the highways that are smuggling people and drugs. It then funnels through a checkpoint. For the last 4 years, these checkpoints, for the most part, have been closed down a lot of that time. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yes. Actually, when I drove to Arizona yesterday, or 2 days ago, the one going in, you're going to go through today, that one was closed as well. And I assumed it was just ours in California, because California's, we're special over here. But that one was closed as well. So they have been closed. They'll open just kind of randomly.
But that hasn't been until recently.
Well, right before the election, they magically opened back up. Now, people that live out here like me, we're not the greatest fan of the checkpoint anyway, because we have to go through it every day. Now, I know it serves a purpose, and it is most definitely a checkpoint. You can't really get around right there.
Right.
It's just huge mountains on both sides.
Having been through this terrain and going out with you last night, I could see the value of the checkpoint where they were at for catching the smugglers that got people into a car. They're there strategically, and they're not being used.
Yep, and they work. Now, well, what we've heard through the grapevine, through the gun store, is that there's not enough manpower to have these checkpoints open. So,
because they're processing people all day long.
We have HSI friends, we have air marshal friends that are in these facilities processing people into the country instead of doing their jobs looking for the bad guys. Now, the checkpoints have been, not to give any secrets away here, but when it rains, checkpoints are closed. Now, if I know that, the bad guys know that.
Yeah.
We got to get better with.
Yeah.
We got to go back to the basics. We got to start over.
They knew it before us. they know.
Yeah.
They know all that stuff. So, how optimistic are you with this change of government now? Do you see? Are you optimistic about what we hope will occur? Are you starting to see any trend changes just with the election, and now hopefully in a week that changes again? What is your level of optimism, and what do you expect as a citizen to see?
So we've seen changes in attitude just from the guys coming into the store, talking to the guys at the gas station, Border Patrol. They're ready to go. They're ready to go back to work. Now, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I know that's not going to happen next week, right? Everybody thinks that first people thought that Trump was going to get elected, and now the border is going to magically solve itself. Well, that didn't happen. Now, what do we have, 4 days or something? 4 days until he's inaugurated. People are, some reason they're thinking that in 4 days that everything's going to change. You saw it out there. This is not going to change. And here in California, it may go back to what we used to have, which was the normal illegal immigration, lots of people from Mexico, Central America. It may go back to that. But that's still a problem as well. There needs to be swift and drastic changes to take place in order to put a hole in the problem.
Yeah, I agree. And I do, I've had a few meetings with the new border czar, Tom Homan. I think that they are ready to go. Like you said, it's not a switch you can just flick, but it's certainly, it's got to be. We have to start, and I'm optimistic that if we let Border Patrol, CBP, HSI, we take the handcuffs off, get them back to work. Tom Homan talked about hiring private companies to come in and actually do the processing instead of having actual agents doing processing and getting the agents back out where they need to be. I think that's some of the key things that they might be able to do, taking the narrative back. But man, Cory, we appreciate this. I wish we could go through all the stuff you have. I hope that the new administration will come in and really dig into some of the intel you guys have been able to gather. I think it's good intel that oftentimes those guys don't get a chance to gather. And you got a lot of information here, especially when it was, when it gets to starting to track some of these people down that might be on the terrorist watch list. Maybe they're gang members, maybe they've committed crimes. I think there's a real treasure trove of information here. So where can people find you and know more? Because we're not going to capture it all today. Where can they come out and see you and find more about you?
So on Instagram, we're at the G.O.A.T Initiative. That's the organization that we started, and the team will post stuff on there. Even when I'm not out there, lots of updates on there. Okay. You can find me at the Cory Gautereaux. That's on Twitter and Instagram as well. And then if you go to the GoATinitiative.org, that's our website. But as you know, having run and for office, it's hard to be in every place at the same time. So
that's for sure.
We're trying to get caught up with everything.
And then do you want to mention your business, your gun store?
Yeah, we've got...
if you need a gun and you're in Southern California?
Firearms Unlimited California, and down here in San Diego and El Cajon.
What's the website?
FUCalifornia.com.
It should be easy to remember.
Firearms Unlimited, Sheriff. I don't know what you're thinking.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Cory, man, it's been a pleasure. Any invitations to any of the politicians that want to come down and see firsthand what you're dealing with?
Yeah, I'll invite them all again, but for 2 years nobody showed up.
Hey, look, I've been clamoring. I had a lot show up. I never had any Democrats show up. I think that's one of the challenges. And I think that for people that are voting in Washington, D.C. on things, I'm not saying they have to be an expert, but I think you should certainly do the best you can to educate yourself on the things you're voting on. And I clearly haven't seen that from politicians. So I hope to see more politicians getting down to the border and understanding exactly what it is that's happening. And hopefully it changes.
Let me just hit on that for 1 second. So yes, that's super important, but we also have this border issue is not a border issue. The people aren't staying here. We know, we have addresses where they're going. They're not staying at the border. This is a country wide issue.
Those 4 last night, 2 were going to New Jersey. 1 was going to Georgia, and I can't remember where the other one was going, but they were not California. They were not Arizona. We see the same thing. So I'm glad you brought that point up.
So the congressmen and senators across the country need to know what's going on. We have people in our local government that have never been to the border, but I'm trying. We're doing everything we can.
I'm doing the same thing. And thank you everybody for joining today and listening in on what we've got. Hopefully you'll follow Cory, the GOAT, because he's got a lot of good stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see the changes that we see now that there's an administration change. I look forward to following you and coming back out here hopefully in the next 6 months and seeing what has changed. So
I look forward to working together, and the GOAT and the Lamb we're going to secure the border.
We're gonna do it
Everybody else
again.
will.
Thank you, brother. And thank you everybody for joining us here with Sheriff Lamb on the border again.